One of our top focus remains President Trump's high-stakes visit to Beijing for summit with Xi Jinping. While the summit is being keenly watched for the outcomes on trade tariffs, tech rivalry and the war in Iran, the elephant in the room is the question of Taiwan. Now, this is while speaking in the Great Hall of the People in Beijing that Xi told Trump the common interests between the two countries outweigh their differences, and each country's success represents an opportunity for the other. She even called on the U.S. to be a partner than an adversary.
The common interests between China and the United States outweigh our differences, and each country's success represents an opportunity for the other. A stable China-US relationship benefits the entire world. When we cooperate, both sides benefit. When we confront each other, both sides suffer. We should be partners rather than adversaries, achieving mutual success and common prosperity, thereby forging a correct path for major powers to coexist in the new era.
Well, Xi Jinping minced no words in drawing Beijing's red lines and reaffirmed that the Taiwan issue is the most important in China-US ties. Further, the Chinese president warned that the two countries will clash if the Taiwan issue is mishandled. These comments reiterate Beijing's stand on Taiwan, which it views as a renegade province. Xi's comments received a sharp rebuttal from Taiwan. A spokesperson of the Taiwanese government called China's military threat as the sole source of insecurity in Taiwan Strait and the broader Indo-Pacific region. For the last half-century, successive U.S. administrations have maintained an ambiguous stance on Taiwan. While Washington recognizes the One China policy, it has also supplied arms and ammunition to Taipei and bolstered its defenses. Washington opposes any unilateral changes to the status quo and supports Taiwan's self-defense. In fact, arms sales are at the core of U.S.-Taiwan ties. According to Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, 77% of major conventional arms imported by Taiwan between 1979 to 2020 were of U.S. origin. And by the end of his first term in 2020, Trump had notified Congress of over $18 billion in foreign military sales to Taiwan. Last December, the Trump administration even announced a $10 billion arms package. However, a new $14 billion package for Taiwan has been awaiting Trump's approval for months. In fact, many in Taiwan fear that Xi will use trade deals to weaken U.S. support or change the status quo. What has prompted those fears are Trump's recent comments that he is willing to discuss U.S. arms sales to Taiwan with Xi. But the big question remains, will President Trump hold on to over half a century of policy on Taiwan? And to discuss more on the high-stakes summit taking place in Beijing, we are being joined on the broadcast by Laura Westbrook and Ross Darrell Feingold, who is political analyst. He's joining us live from Taipei. First, coming across to you, Laura, how do you view the high-stakes summit? There is, of course, a lot that has been talked about, be it tariff, trade, or even Taiwan issue for that matter, on which Xi Jinping has made the position of China absolutely clear.
Yep, that's right. We have seen a very warm welcome, though, with President Xi Jinping greeting U.S. President Donald Trump the two leaders shaking hands and appearing to have a very warm welcome. There was the national anthem that was played on a band to greet him by the national anthem of both countries. There were also children waving US and China flags as well as flowers, and there were also warm words ahead of their bilateral meeting, with President Xi Jinping saying that the two should be partners, not rivals. And US President Donald Trump also emphasized their personal relationship, saying they had a fantastic relationship, and also saying that the relationship between the US and China was going to be better than ever. Now, the two have had their bilateral meeting. It lasted for about 2 hours. Then they took a stroll through the Temple of Heaven. They're set to have a state banquet tonight, and they'll continue the conversation over tea and lunch on Friday before President Donald Trump flies out. So a lot to discuss and a lot of issues, as you mentioned. According to a readout from that bilateral meeting, we have been getting some detail of what they had been talking about. As you said, Taiwan remains a key priority and also the most sensitive issue when it comes to US-China relations. According to state media, President Xi said Taiwan is the most important issue in US-China relations. He also gave a warning that if the Taiwan issue is not handled well, the two countries will clash or even come into conflict, pushing the US and China relations into a very dangerous place. So really, in Beijing, President Xi Jinping saying that Taiwan is very much a red line for them. Now, they are not happy that the US provides arms sales to Taiwan, and there is an arms package pending in Washington. Experts also saying that they will be watching to see what and whether Donald Trump comments on Taiwan, what he says or doesn't say. But apart from that issue, President Xi Jinping also said that the two countries and President Xi and President Trump had agreed to put constructive, strategic and stable relations between their countries as a new positioning for China-US relations, saying that the economic and trade teams from both countries had reached a generally balanced and positive outcome in their talks, and he hopes that they could maintain the momentum that was hard-won as it continues. He said that China was willing to further open up itself to US businesses, and that is something that Donald Trump does want. He's brought with him this delegation of business chiefs who including Apple CEO Tim Cook and NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang. So
Yes.
we will be watching to see whether there are any agreements announced. The Boeing CEO is there, maybe some purchases by China of Boeing jets.
Yes, Laura, I'll come to the business delegation bit in just some time from now. Let's also go across to Mr. Feingold. Mr. Feingold, strong statements, of course, coming in from Beijing. Xi has made it absolutely clear about position on Taiwan. He's told Trump that the two superpowers can actually come into conflict if the Taiwan issue is mishandled. How do you analyze the statement coming in, and what is exactly the sentiment as we speak in Taipei?
No surprise, China enunciating this position. That's their longstanding position. They view Taiwan as part of the People's Republic of China. The government in Taiwan disagrees with that. China has long objected to U.S. weapons sales to Taiwan and other forms of military or security cooperation. But the U.S. continues to do that and will continue to do that even after this meeting, even though there's so much speculation that Trump might slow or stop weapons sales. I don't think that's likely. And the easy answer for the United States on that question is to tell China, one, it's been our longtime policy to sell weapons, so there's no change there. We're not doing anything new. You're well aware that this is our policy. And also the United States from decades ago also made it clear that its weapons sales to Taiwan, or any reduction in weapons sales, was based on the threat level from China. And if the threat level from China towards Taiwan increases, then the U.S. has always taken the view that it will respond accordingly with weapons sales to Taiwan. So again, the U.S. view is that nothing's changed. Now, when it comes to the reaction here in Taiwan, clearly the government of Taiwan is watching this closely. At times it seems they're not really sure how to react because they start off, like with many people around the world, that Trump is transactional and might make some kind of deal that's detrimental to Taiwan's interest. But at the same time, by saying such things, the government here in Taiwan creates the risk that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I would recommend to the government of Taiwan not to say things publicly like they're nervous or they're worried, but actually officials here have been saying things like that. I would recommend they instead say that, we're going to do what's necessary to defend Taiwan. We're going to do what's necessary to maintain our relationship with the United States.